and super excited to talk about what I have to talk about today, because today I'm going to have to give a read, an education, and a history lesson all at once.
Thanks so much for clicking play and joining me for this episode of She Got Next. My guest today is Jemele Hill. After tweeting the truth, in 2018, she left ESPN and has stayed busy, publishing her memoir, hosting a number of podcasts, live streaming her show Spolitics 3 times a week. She's a regular on CNN, a contributing writer for The Atlantic. She and her husband talk relationships from the comfort of their own bed. And she and longtime friend Carrie Champion host Flagrant and Funny, a podcast on iHeart Women's Sports Network.
But I literally start just by saying
much more. Let's jump in.
Now, I'm petty. I know you and Carrie Champion talk about being petty all the time, but I feel like if I were you or Kamala Harris, Madam Vice President, you can throw in Hillary Clinton there too, I would begin every conversation with, I told y'all. What did I say? Where was the lie? But I've been so inspired by the transitions you've made professionally. I listened to a number of podcasts where you were a guest. Obviously, you're a journalist or you're used to hosting other people. Mm-hmm. But this quote kind of stuck with me. It's from about 2 years ago. I came to the realization when I left ESPN that I was the business. I had to structure whatever was the next phase in my career in that manner. I was the company. And I'm thinking about it. It's been, 8 years now, building this brand, building this company. How does it feel at this point?
That's a really complicated, it's a great question, but the answer is pretty complicated. Overall, I would say it feels really good. But there are certain realities of when you strike out on your own that you have to kind of be prepared for. And everybody's journey is different. Mine went a certain way. Thankfully, I was able to carry on the momentum of the persona and the popularity I'd established as an ESPN anchor. But moving into the phase of entrepreneurship has come with some ups and downs, to be frank. And once I sort of leaned into being an independent journalist, that meant that I had to become more of an entrepreneur. And that's something that most journalists don't actually want to be. Is that we want to create, we want to do all the things that are built around our creativity. And the business part is something that is very secondary. I wouldn't even say a secondary. It's just something we would prefer not to think about. But I had to take that part of it just as seriously as I did the creative part of it. And there are times where sometimes it's just frankly not room for both. And it is very different when you are positioning yourself in leadership, because that means that you have people working with you that are making decisions for their whole lives based off how you lead. And that's an incredible amount of pressure. And there were times where I was really good at that and times where I wasn't. And, I definitely live with particular partnerships, a sense of, I don't believe in regret, but there's a sense of letting people down that I have definitely, that has been one of the traumatic experiences that I've had to deal with while being out on my own. So I know that there's a lot of people who look at the sort of finished product and think like, oh, it must be easy to do. It is not easy to do. And despite the fact that maybe LLC Twitter has convinced people that this is easy to do, it is not. Because once you start becoming responsible for how other people live their lives, it's a different level of responsibility. And, as I said, unfortunately, I had to go through some growing pains in doing that not probably did impact people that worked with me and worked for me. And so, that part has been a learning experience, but overall, I would say the transition out of ESPN has been great, mostly because it's given me autonomy, authority. It's given me agency in ways that I would have never had I stayed at ESPN. And so for that part, I'm very grateful. So despite the ups and downs, it's like overall, since leaving there, I don't regret it a single day. Of like, I don't really say hardly ever. I wish I would still be at ESPN. I don't. And it was, and that itself was a great experience. But I don't miss the grind I was in, nor do I miss the fact that realizing now coming out of it, I realized that I had gotten a little bit complacent, and so I don't miss feeling either of those things. I'm happy to be where I am.
Well, I would imagine it feels you're being pulled in two directions. People are cheering you on as a Black woman on TV, wearing her braids, talking the truth, bringing the culture to the masses. So you feel that sense of responsibility coupled with the responsibility you have for yourself to allow yourself to grow and tell the truth as you see it. And as you said, that puts people who are supporting you, people who are in your camp, who are relying on you for their livelihood, to feel like, just play it safe. Just don't say all the things. Just write it down in a journal or something and tear it up and burn it, whatever it is. But I imagine like that calling, that beckoning to be yourself, it couldn't be quieted.
Well, and listen, those reservations, they never go away, because even if I'm not thinking about the people I work with, I also think about the fact that I have a whole personal life that has nothing to do with any of this. Like, I got a whole husband, all right? And so because of that, I think about, as does he in his professional work, we think about the kind of lives we want to lead when both of our professional lives are sort of no longer, it's like, so those conversations I constantly have with myself is like, did you really need to say that? Or was that, I don't want to edit myself, for sure. And he understands. He's never come to me, not one single time, and said, hey, did you really need to say that? But I am also somewhat conscious of part of what keeps my life's work going and my livelihood going is you have to be at least aware of certain things, and aware of certain sacrifices you don't even know that you're making. I know already that I'm self-aware enough to understand that my career as a broadcast journalist in the fashion that people knew me at ESPN is over. Like, I'm self-aware enough to know that given where the network model is now, what the sensibilities are now, that it's very unlikely that a ESPN-like network is going to come to me and want to hire me. Like, I'm okay with that, because I know that they want to protect different stuff than I want to protect. Like, I don't care about the stuff that they want to protect, and they want to protect those things. And I'm happy to come in and do what I call mercenary work, where I'll work for a few weeks, work for a couple of days, do these things, and then I'm out. But like, that idea of that I'm going to be anchoring something on some major platform, at least in linear television, those days are over with. So, and I'm fine with that, again, as I said, but also understanding that in order for me to say what I want to say, and in the manner in which I want to say it, which I feel like is beneficial to our culture at large, there are certain sort of institutions that I need to be aware of as I'm saying these truthful things. And so I tend to align myself with people who don't mind when I say these things, or at least have the stomach to fight for it. Like, a big reason that one of the first places I gravitated to after I left ESPN was the Atlantic, is because the Atlantic is not in bed with leagues, right? So I can write about sports and the intersection between sports, race, culture, gender, and politics there in a way that I know I probably couldn't write about that anywhere else. And that's just because of the makeup of the Atlantic, and because they still believe in the journalistic principles that I believe in. Like, we're still very value aligned. So being there makes a lot of sense for me. And so I find myself having to be very strategic and intentional about the partnerships that I develop, because it's going to require you to have a different level of stuff when you have me on the roster. And if you don't have that level of stuff, then we're going to probably be at odds, and it's probably not going to be a fruitful partnership. So I still very much keep those things in mind. And what I probably also say about this iteration of where I am is that independence is invaluable. Like, it's hard to put a dollar amount on what that means. Is that most of the projects and the things that I choose to do now are things that I want to do, and not things that I have to do. And there's a very big difference between those two mentalities. And while I know that the mentality I am will infinitely make me much less money, I jokingly say this. I was like, I wish I could sell out. I was like, I wish I could do that. Like, I wish I could pull off the grift a little better, or just pull off a grift, period. I wish I could do that, because it's so much money in doing that. Like, it's absurd. But I know at the end of the day, I kind of have to live with myself and be comfortable, not just going to sleep at night, is that, my community, I'm tethered to them. There's an unconditional tethering that's there. And I couldn't imagine being in a world where I couldn't go back to Black folks and that Black folks weren't my foundation of what I do. And even though we may not always see everything eye to eye, I'm very cognizant of the fact that no matter how this whole career pans out, eventually I got to be able to walk around my city, be in Detroit, and feel good about the things I've put out there and feel good that I've represented them well. And if I can't do that, then all of this is like sort of meaningless. I want to feel good in my own city and know that they know that I love them unconditionally and that I stand for this in a real way. And so if I can't really do that, it doesn't really work for me.
Well, I have to imagine looking at your follower count. At my last check, you had 1.3, 1.4 million followers on Twitter, 198,000 subscribers on YouTube, nearly 900,000 on Instagram, 230,000 plus on Facebook. You have people, you found people, they found you, they've stuck with you. That must feel confirming that all of the things that you're doing, that you're sacrificing, whether or not you want to go all in or you got to reel it in, you bet on yourself. And people have been inspired by that, encouraged by that, and they go to you to feel like, I know I'm not alone. What, all Black folks, let's come together. We agree on this innately, right? And like Jemele is getting us all together 3 times a week on multiple platforms to confirm that. But I do want to go back in time a bit as you're thinking about that brand, building these numbers, creating opportunities for people to engage with you and ask you all kind of things. What were the things that came to your mind? I'll put it this way. In my other world, I work as a brand strategy consultant. And I think of this as a spicy chicken sandwich kind of challenge. Lots of people have a spicy chicken sandwich. It's Popeyes, it's Chick-fil-A, Jack in the Box, Denny's, whoever has, but they all have their own little recipe. What kind of seasonings they mix in there to differentiate who they are from their competitors. And when you think about who you are, there's a lot of talking heads out there, a lot of voices, a lot of noise. But when it comes down to it, there are certain values that you have, certain principles that guide you, and goals that you have for how you want to move about in the world. And you touched on some of that already. But thinking about those values, what are the things that you know that you walk into? Like, this is what I believe at my core. And whenever I turn on that live or I go on CNN or I go on another podcast, at my core, I believe these things, the Jemele Hill brand.
So it's rooted in genuineness and authenticity. And I know that gets thrown around a lot, right? It's like being authentic. But I think the core of it is that, like, whenever young people come to me and ask me about how to build a brand, I say, how you going to build a brand when you ain't got a product? Like most of them don't have a product, right? They're trying to build it off something artificial. I've been in this business. I believe next year will be my 30th year in business or in journalism. 30th year, right? That means a lot. And throughout the course of the 30 years that I have been in this business as a reporter, a columnist, a broadcaster, podcaster, all those things, the constant has been the ability to be myself no matter what. And my co-host and dear friend, Michael Smith, used to say this all the time, is that the way you get better at media is by being yourself most of the time. Because that's the only way this is going to work. Is like people have to buy that I really believe this, that I really feel this, that this is who the person I'm presenting myself to be is someone that they may not always agree with, but they can trust they're being a real person. And unfortunately, throughout this media journey I've had, I have encountered a lot of people who are not authentic. At first, I thought that people were sort of overblowing it and being like, oh, they're just like, oh no, but it's true is that a lot of people that are in media, front-facing talent, they're very well-paid actors. And I have never been able to do that. I can't lie to the public about something that I know is detrimental. I can't present a case for something I don't believe in. I think about my early broadcast experiences at ESPN, and I think it was a blessing that I never wanted to do broadcasting, that I kind of got gerrymandered in, and then I sort of took to it. And the reason I took to it was because I didn't know I was supposed to pretend to be somebody else. So like I had no idea. I was like, oh, people do that. Like oh no, I came into it sort of not, I took the job seriously. I didn't take myself seriously. And I think that worked. And because I did that, I was always able to present myself in an authentic way that producers liked and they thought worked. And the rest, as they say, is history. But I never came in pretending to be anybody else other than myself.
I think at this point, because we see so many journalists who have now become influencers, and I don't just mean the influencers that are like, buy my leggings, here's the discount code. You know, they're on Instagram influencing our thoughts, the way we see the world, the stories through their perspective. This whole industry has slowly turned into and transitioned to not just information, but how people feel about that information. You were raised, you studied, you have a degree in journalism. You came up the ranks asking when, what, where, why, and how. And then you had to transition to the, and here's how I feel about it. And I wonder, as a journalist, did it feel uncomfortable at first? Your industry, you were trained to just give us the facts. But the audience and where media has gone is we need the and. Tell about that transition for you.
That was an interesting transition because, you know, when I was sort of groomed in this business, we were never supposed to be part of the story, but the business did change because the people and the way they consume news changed, where it did matter to them who was telling them the information. And as you said, they wanted to hear the and. They wanted to know why. And they were relying on your credibility to tell them why it mattered. And so that was a very stark change, because even when I first got into column writing, it was still that way. It was, you weren't supposed to make yourself the story. You know, you can present an opinion, a reported opinion, mind you, but the whole point was there was supposed to be some level of distance between who was saying it in terms of what was being said. That's all changed now because of, you know, the growth of celebrity journalism has made that the case. And as you mentioned, there is this blurred kind of crazy line between influencing and journalism. I feel like I still know the difference. I feel like there should be a difference because I think if you're an influencer, the access matters, where if you're a journalist, the access shouldn't matter, right? It's like, I think most of the influencers are trying to give you an insight of what it's like to be inside of that particular thing. Whereas if you're a journalist, you're asking critical questions that probably keep you outside of the circle. And whenever you start trading access is where a lot of problems occur for journalists. So, and you know, the other thing too is like, I think influencers are considered to be an extension of a brand, extension of a team, extension of a person. It's like, as a journalist, your job is not to promote. Your job is to tell people what is happening, why it's happening, and why it matters. And that's it. Like, so I say this to sports fans all the time. Your job is to be a fan. That's not my job. Your job is that. So it's like, I'm going to ask the thing that you probably want to know, but you're not in my position, so you can't ask that. So we're actually an extension of the public interest.
You and Carrie Champion on the show that you all co-host on iHeart Women's Sports Network, Flagrant and Funny. You've run into this challenge a couple of times where fans are mad at you for talking about sports in the way that you do. And the way that you do, in my opinion, is very on brand for both you and Carrie, for how you've always approached talking about sports. And it's similar in ways to how men talk about sports. Folks who are talking heads or who are reporters, they're giving you, it's GOAT talk, it's matchups, it's data. So you're breaking things down. But because we're in this era where a lot of women have become fans of women's sports, they really want to see it as a kumbaya, let's all just be friends type of thing. And I'm thinking about this network. And while that network was built to have these conversations around women's sports, but you also want to create an opportunity for fans who are fans in a different way to enjoy the conversation. So I'm wondering, with Flagrant and Funny, how you manage that, the truth of how you all approach the work, approach the conversation, and the ways in which you invite fans who are fans in a different way to hear the conversation, to hear the analysis, and feel like they're a part of the community that you're building.
So we never want women sports fans, especially, to feel like we're telling you that how men and male fans approach sports is the better way. So that, like, that's not it. What we do want to do is respect the agency and the autonomy of women, because there is, to some degree, an amount of unnecessary coddling that happens in women's sports. And I think it's not respectful to who these women actually are. So you can't tell me that on one end, let's just take Caitlin Clark, for example, is that Caitlin Clark is a pretty, and I mean this in a very positive, complimentary way. She's a mean competitor. She is. And I need people to understand that. So when other competitors respond accordingly, understand that's just part of the game. And so I feel like what happens is that we see this in music all the time, right? We see male rappers go at each other's throats constantly, like battle rap competition. That's considered a part of hip hop. That's considered the staple and the underbelly of hip hop. When women start to do it, well, why can't you be better? Why don't you? I'm sorry. So let me get this straight. And even when it comes to what these female performers are rapping about, right? Yes, there are plenty of women rappers who rap about sex. And they're like, well, they brought strip club culture and they only rap about sex, as if y'all have not been rapping about dealing drugs for like the last 50 years. Like, literally, y'all are on the same thing. Making money, dealing drugs. Even we look at your life and know you don't do these things. That's totally okay. But for some reason, there's this expectation. And I know they think it's being complimentary, but it's actually being crippling, that women are just supposed to be better. Despite how we're treated, despite we're indoctrinated and we're conditioned in the same society that you are. But we have to have the moral compass and you don't. Nah, I reject that. It's like every athlete that's a woman ain't got to be friends. They don't have to like each other. And while there can be a general solidarity among them, like, hey, we're women athletes, we're fighting for the same things. Like, yeah, you should do that. And I would have the same expectation of men, is that when y'all are under the umbrella of a sport, y'all all in the players union, there's a shared fight you should have. But there is just this different standard that is constantly lobbed at women, that they have to be nice to each other. They can only compete in a way that makes people comfortable. It's like, no, sometimes women like to cuss each other out. Sometimes they're going to go at it because they're competitors. Sometimes they're going to get at the officials. And while I do think some of Caitlin's behavior is beyond the scope of what we have seen on both the men or the women's side, I do not deny her the right to be a competitive asshole, because she should be one. And if you are denying her the right to that, then I have to question, because on one hand, I hear y'all complaining among the men that they're too friendly, but with the women, you expect friendliness. I'm wondering what is really at the root of this. So the whole purpose of Flagrant and Funny is to not only draw attention to these hypocrisies, but to also provide a space where you have two women who have very deep, experience covering sports and covering women athletes in particular, that are actually treating these women like the competitors that they are. Because
what I think is wild about this is that the WNBA, we're celebrating 30 years of the WNBA right now. It really broke through because of that rivalry of Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark going from college and then going professional, just like Magic and Bird. That's when the NBA really blew up. We know that storylines, that rivalries, we know all that stuff can really influence and grow the brand, grow the game. It is important for us, I think, again, as journalists, people talking about it, recognizing that. And like you said, allowing fans to understand, like, this is normal. They've been true to this. They've been doing it for a long time. And so not taking sides or really boxing athletes in, women who are athletes into this mold of, like, you got to be cute and just happy to be here. That won't last if we don't, again, have storylines, have rivalries, and drive that fandom, in my mind. If you want us to sustain it, we got to have these kind of conversations.
I think you're right. Even though I know there's some fans who have a particular level of distaste for the drama, I'm like, the drama actually is what sells. And that doesn't apply to just women's sports. I think in sports in general, Now, I understand you don't want the sport to be overloaded with drama, with not people actually appreciating the great basketball that is being played. But yeah, rivalries, pettiness, like all those things kind of define sports, and it is what it's supposed to be. And so this expectation that the women should be different for some reason, I find to be one that is, kind of rooted in misogyny, because it's built off how people think women are supposed to act and compete. Like they have their own ideas about this. It's like, yeah, a lot of these women that are competing is like they want to tear apart the other person, and I think that's fine. If it's done within the parameters and the boundaries of the game, like that's completely fine. I mean, Caitlin Clark is gonna give it as good as she gets it, and I need her fans to stop coddling her, stop laying down the capes over the puddles in the rain. It's like she's fine.
She's fine.
That's what I love about Angel Reese. Like Angel Reese gonna let you know, she gonna talk her shit, and I'm like, let them know, but do know that on the other side of that, somebody gonna let you know, and that's fine too. So I just want it to be fair. Is my sort of plea.
My sports fandom and who I consider a sports fan, I've had to evolve on it. I grew up liking sports. I played in the street with my brother and his friends. I'm very short, very small. They would like take a timeout, let me get a touchdown for once before I start crying. And I think when you are a girl and you grow up playing sports, you attach your fandom, like I said, kind of the ways that guys say fandom should look. As soon as you say I work in sports, or you found, well, what year were they drafted? What number did they first wear? Where did their daddy go to school? Like, is that what being a fan is? And now, because so many different types of fans have come into sports and through women's sports, they might not even care what's happening on the court. They want to know the tunnel outfits. They want to know who's dating whom. They want to know their workout routine and how come their makeup isn't smudging. That's still one that I'm trying to figure out. I do not understand how it doesn't.
I know they must use a different kind of mascara than the rest of us. Right? It's like
plaster
or eyeliner, you use it.
But I've had to just get over my old ways of thinking about like, this is what a fan's supposed to look like. You have to know and walk this way and leave space for that, for the wags and the walk-ins. And I think, as you said, on the flip side, it's them understanding that these are athletes who are competing at a level that we can't imagine, the grind that it takes, what they're doing behind the scenes. They want to get after it. This is what they've been dreaming about. So kind of understanding that fans can look and feel anyway. Again, I'm coming around to it. I'm being a little bit better about it.
but I get what you're saying.
You've mentioned on the show that sometimes journalists who've covered the WNBA specifically, have kind of approached it as like, we're friends. And so when they see another reporter come at someone or dissect a play or a team or an attitude on the court, that's when they feel like they've been misled. I thought we were all fun and friends here. But thinking about your journalistic career, I want to get back to this because, again, I find the evolution very interesting. And it's really helpful for people to understand that your life doesn't necessarily have to go the way that you plan it. Just being open and having those core values, who knows what doors can open up. I understand that when you were young, your mom cleaned houses, and at times you went with her, and there was a man who had the newspaper, and you read that newspaper while your mom cleaned his house. You read the sports media page, and when you got to high school, 10th grade is when you realize, I want to do this work. This is for me. With all of the things that you're doing now, writing for The Atlantic, you've got Spolitics, you've got members only content on your YouTube channel, the newsletter, bedtime conversations with your husband. You're sharing so much. But I wonder, when you think about younger you, when you first were interested in this industry, what inspired you to get into it? Do you feel like you're being fulfilled in the ways that you're sharing your journey, telling these stories, adding this commentary? Your thoughts and opinions, does it still feel like you did back then, first inspired to get into it?
It does, because I do think the same sort of problem exists, which is underrepresentation of, Black journalists, of a Black lens, because even in the modern day, with obviously so many channels and ways that you can be independent, our voice, there's an active campaign to scrub our voice off the scene. And I think that's pretty prevalent in legacy media right now, hence why you see people like me Joanne Reed, Don Lemon. That's why we've all gone independent, because we saw what time it is in legacy media. It's like they have no real incentive to honor our voices. And that means that we have to create an alternative so that when we look back on these moments and times, we can feel as if somebody was presenting something that looked like it was inclusive of our opinions, thoughts, our trials, our triumphs, like all of those things. So, being a journalist, you're kind of a part-time historian. And it's why I continue to encourage younger journalists, especially younger Black journalists, to come into this field, is because like we need people who are going to tell the story the way that it should be told. Like history and context shouldn't always be left to the victors, right? It's like it needs more than that. And so that is where I feel like my role will never be outgrown. Is like we're going to always need our voice, and especially in this time where there's such a concerted effort to erase it. It's like that to me signals we need it to be even stronger. We need wartime journalists. We do.
Mm.
And when we think about the story of America and how it's been framed for most of our lives, it has largely missing us. And we've had to make intentional steps to make sure that we were included in the history of telling this country's story. And so I see that mission no different now. It's like when we think about what is the story of America, if it didn't have a voice in it, it's not really the story of America. So that is enough for me to keep me going, keep me inspired, and all of those things. I need to have it on record somewhere that when people look back, they can say like, oh, she called that crazy. Yes, that was crazy. And here's why. Or bringing this particular context that includes our history to the table. So Black journalism is even more important because of the constant threat of them trying to erase our voice and erase our history.
Advice that I heard you give on another podcast to young people in general, not just those that you want to get into journalism. You said 21, 22-year-old you didn't dream big enough. I never envisioned the life that I'm living now. I didn't know that it was even possible. Whatever you are dreaming, I need you to dream 10 times bigger. What's the next big leap for you?
All the goals that I still have are probably more related to, they're all related to creative fulfillment. None of them are related to financial fulfillment. Not to say that, I don't want to make way more money than I made now. That's not to say that. But what it does say is like, it's my dream, for example, to direct. Like I want to direct. There's documentaries I have in mind that I want to direct. I want to see done just because I need that story told, that history told, that legacy in place. Not my own personal legacy, but the legacy of the story. So the majority of my dreams, I feel like are dreaming big. And I have a much different perspective now because I can appreciate the journalist I've become now. Whereas, when I was making my early goals, I didn't know the journalist I was going to be. So it was more or less like, let me pick the safest possible dream and go after that. And so now it's like, no, I'm not thinking stay safe. I'm thinking about numerous big scale projects I want to do, about, who knows, maybe one day that includes owning my own studio or things like that. Like those are the kinds of big scale 10 times over dreams you have to have. Is that it can't just be about producing a piece of content. It has to be about like, yeah, I kind of want to own and dominate the whole thing. Like, yeah, I want to be in Oscar contention or be in like these things. And so I feel like a lot of that is still very much on the table because with projects I've had go south that I've been close to that. And so I'm like, I know it's possible just because of how close to it I've been. So I want to maintain. I just recently told some young people this is like, to be great, you got to be delusional. You have to be delusional. Every great person that's accomplished anything has to be completely delusional, where you might be the only person who believes you are actually capable of this. And to me, that's a good sign. It's not a bad sign of nobody supported me. That's a great sign. That means you are dreaming something that's so big that most people can't even understand it. And that's the kind of dream I want to hold space for, is the dream that's so big that most people do not understand why, or what makes me entitled enough to think I should be dreaming that. That's when you know you got the perfect dream.
I am, as I've said multiple times throughout this conversation, grateful for it, inspired by the journey that you're on, and taking the lessons of dreaming big to heart. I'm not that much younger than you, by the way. So those who are next to you in age, we're inspired by the journey. So, and you're part of the culture, a needed part of the culture. You're making an impact beyond what you even know.
Well, I appreciate that, because one area of growth is learning to accept compliments. So like, I
Yeah.
thank you for that. And if there was any bit of seed of inspiration that I planted, I'm humbled by that. But do know that, I'm sure you know this, but it's like you have been able to get to this point because of you. And it's like, yeah, you may have gotten little bits of inspiration along the way, but it really is a testament to the fact that you are always on the right side of it. So I always feel like people who are smart, talented, who, believe in foundation, integrity, those things, like there's always going to be room in this world for people, regardless of what external factors may say. It's like, there's more than enough room for you, more than enough. So I'm happy that you're contributing a new, different, refreshing voice to this entire conversation. So yeah, I'm beyond grateful you even say something like that about me.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you again for watching this on YouTube, listening on Spotify, following along on Instagram and Blue Sky. Until next time.